Hi there. Looks like people are still connecting up, but I'll just do a bit of an intro whilst people come through. Seems like out of the series that we've done so far on the how-to webinars, this has been one of the most popular ones. So I want to give a bit of time for everyone to connect up. But yeah, for those that don't know me, I'm Sam. I head up the account management team. I've been here for a couple of years now, and yeah, today we're going to be looking through how we can build effective management accounts, really. We're going to be doing that in both the live and the PDF function, so we can kind of get the best of both worlds, but probably be mainly focusing in the printer reports section. But yeah, obviously, as you can see, I'm working from home, as I'm sure the majority of you are, or have been. So if my dog barks loads or something, I told my wife to make sure he's under wraps, but those sort of working from home frustrations, I'm sure we're all aware of. Do forgive if anything like that happens. If we do drop out, which hasn't happened yet, touch wood, we'll just restart it again. So hopefully nothing goes wrong, we can just have a smooth session. And if you've got any questions, then by all means whack them in the Q&A function of Zoom. I'll probably come to them at the end of the session. Due to the amount of people in here, I hope I can get all the answers, all the questions answered at that little point. If not, I'm sure I can kind of go direct, but should be all good. So therefore, the full hour that we've got should be plenty of time, maybe 40 minutes of substance that I'll go through, and then leave the remaining kind of second half for questions. Cool, so it looks like most people are in. I will also send a recording as well, actually, just to kind of let everyone know. So everyone's got the recording after the session, as well as a guide that we're going to create. So you should have everything that you need following today's session. Cool, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to run through some management accounts. Cool, so hopefully everyone can see this. This is just simply my kind of futurely home screen, I suppose, the first dashboard that loads up. What we're going to first do is we're going to jump to the organizations here. So this is obviously a list of all of your clients that are connected up. If you're working with a client that isn't yet connected, just hit add organization and you can then connect them up. Once you've then synced that client or uploaded a manual client, a good first step really with a kind of a report that you might be building out, or indeed a forecast or anything like that, is to do a bit of housekeeping in the organization settings. So first, if we go to the settings of this client, so let's go to Real Story Productions. This will be the example demo that we're going to be using. And this is where we can then do that housekeeping really. So we can view the chart of accounts. We can also upload non-financial data as well in this area. That, I believe, is the subject of next how-tos webinar, so do come along to that one. But this chart of accounts is where we can then, like I mentioned, do this housekeeping really, this bit of admin, which is quite good when you first connect up the client. And by that, what I mean is, within income, or indeed any of the categories on the P&L balance sheet, you're going to have a list of your accounts here. And what we need to do is effectively put them into groups. By putting them into groups, that means we can then report on them a lot easier. So you see here, I've got two groups that I've created, wedding and non-wedding. So if I just deleted those groups, for example, we're just going to get a list of all the accounts there. So then if you show, for example, a chart in a report with income split out by account level, that can be good in certain situations, but having maybe 10 or so different lines on a chart, depending on how you've structured it, can look a bit confusing. So we can then create groups to make it a lot more precise and kind of punchy, really, with the ability to open it up if we need to. So here, as I did before, we've got the accounts which are kind of grouped as wedding and non-wedding. So if we just tick the ones we want to group, so there's all the wedding ones, click move/group here at the top, then give it a name. Then your parent is going to be anything in your chart of accounts. So we're going to keep it in income and then click create. And now we've got our group there. And if we now do the same with non-wedding, we can then also create a group for non-wedding. That's now our two groups. So when we come to present a chart now for income, we can have a variety of options to present it, but it's a nice way to now have just simply two lines, wedding and non-wedding. We could also have other charts that then show all the breakdown if you need to, or have the ability when you have the table to open it up entirely. But in this case, we have the ability to have that group level now. So it's a good thing go through the rest of the chart of accounts. So I've done a bit in my cost of sales, but we've got some more here. So equipment, for example, we can simply click move/group and put another group in here. Put it to our cost of sales again. Have I spelled it right? No, I haven't. Equipment, there we go. Then we've got one final group here, just of food cost. So it's fairly straightforward. Once you've done it, you don't need to do it again. So whenever your chart of accounts syncs through from Xero QuickBooks, it will simply keep in this mapped order. Okay. So simply just spend a few minutes when you first connect them up, do this bit of admin. You can also do things such as move it from one category to another on the P&L and also on the balance sheet side. So say, for example, in expenses, let's say this account, utilities water, shouldn't be in expenses, it should be in other expenses. We can click move/group, click on bulk move accounts, and then move it anywhere we want to. So other expenses, for example, and then click move. It would then simply just move it into our other expenses here. That's that. And obviously to reiterate, anything you do in Futurely doesn't affect the original source. So you're not going to be changing how Xero or QuickBooks is structured. It's simply just ordering it how you want to show it in Futurely. I'm just going to move that back though, because that should be an expense. Cool. Just going to double check it's there. Yes, it is. Cool. So now we've done that kind of basic admin. Our accounts are looking a lot tidier now. So when we go to present that report, we can draw on that kind of condensed version rather than having lots of accounts, which could be a little bit confusing for certain clients, or just be generally messy for most clients, really. So now if we go to the printed reports, that's where we can then build out our management accounts. So when you first come here, you're going to have a list of any report that you've already created. But we're going to build out one from scratch. When you click new report, you will get a load of templates here again. So by all means, have a flick through and see how these templates can work for your clients. But we're going to build one out from scratch, just so we can see that whole full process. So we're going to use the blank PDF here. And what we're going to do is effectively create two sets of management accounts. We're going to create a basic one or simple one, and then a more advanced set of management accounts. So for different types of clients at different journeys, but obviously the reports or any work you really create for your clients is should be on a client by client basis, really. We can't really create a set of management accounts that covers all of your clients because every client is different. But we can have templates, so therefore maybe 80% of the report is done, and you can then tweak certain bits like a different KPI that a client's more interested in. So yeah, I think certainly we can use templates. We just got to be mindful of not using the same report for everyone. We can just tweak it from client to client. But using those templates, we save the time because we've done the majority of the report. So let's call this a basic management accounts. We're going to search for an organization. So you can search by just scrolling down like this, or you can type in the name, and we're going to select real story then. So period ending, I'm going to put this to the end of June. So we're going to say that June's closed off, and we're going to report on that. If you then have multiple scenarios, so different forecasts, you can select a different scenario for that. We're going to do a forecast piece in the advanced one, but for the basic one, we can leave it as that scenario because we're not actually going to use a scenario in this case. Click confirm. Cool. So that's our settings created, but we now need to obviously build up the report. So we click on the plus here. It'll then bring up a first page that we can then start to edit. So in the printed reports, we are building up a report that's orientated on an A4 piece of paper in landscape. We can then change the layout on the right-hand side. So you've got lots of different layouts. For this first page, I'm going to look for this one here, where we've got two equal segments at the top. and then a option down the bottom. So firstly, I'm going to rename the page, as this is their new page. I'm going to rename this profit and loss. So effectively, this report is going to be a profit and loss and a balance sheet set of management accounts. Nice and straightforward, but we're going to add the Futurely touch to it and really bring it to life with some interesting visuals and analysis for the client. So down the bottom, we're going to click on template because we're going to look for our profit and loss template. Just type in profit, we can then find the profit and loss there. That's now going to whack it in as a chart, which I've never seen the profit and loss really presented as a chart. So we're going to move it to a table, much better. So now it's looking a little bit more recognizable. As we're using a template, we've got the templated title here, profit and loss, but we don't need that in this case because we've got the title on the page. So if we just take out the title there. And then again, because it's a template, it's got some certain defaults on there that we might not always want. So because we're going to be looking just at a chronological time frame, so just like the last 12 months, we don't need these variances on because we're not really comparing any periods. So if we scroll down to the column formulas and then turn off the variance, we'll then get rid of that. So we can leave the total on because a total in this case is good. We've got other totals as well. So financial year to date means to today's date. To report end is probably the more popular one. That means it will go to the end of the report. So in this case, it will be to the end of July there, but we're going to go to the end of June, which is normally better. So it goes to the end of the month rather than to today's date. So report end, but other ones as well. If you're doing like a 2-year P&L, we've got a financial year total. So you could then put a total at the end of the financial year, which can be useful as well. But we're going to leave just simply as the total of the table then. If we then scroll back up to date range, we've then got the options here to change the date. And we're going to use this use default date option here. So that means that effectively, if I take a step back, we're going to be using this date here. And that's going to be important when we want to then use this as a template or then pull the data forward to the next month. Because by simply clicking on this June date, we can then pull it forward to July when this report is ready for the next month, for example. And then the whole report refreshes and we've then got that template there. But we'll come back to that in a sec. Just wanted to kind of highlight that at that point. So we're going to come in here, edit, and we're going to simply add in here the report, which doesn't want to play ball. I'm going to click save. Put in the details again, and hopefully it allows me to go back into the table. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So down to the date range, we've got our default date selected, but we're going to change it to months. I'm going to go to the previous 11 months then. So we then got a full 12-month range then. We'll see then that the table doesn't quite fit in there at the moment because we've got that large date range. So what we're going to do is scroll down to table cell width, and we're then going to squeeze it in so it fits in that space nice and comfortably like that. Cool, that's our P&L all done. So then at the top, we want to add in some visuals. So at the top left, what I'm going to do here is a new chart. So I'm not going to use a template this time. I'm just going to build a chart out from scratch. So let's call this income analysis. Cool. If we then go to date range, we're then going to the default date's already selected, so just need to put in the same date range as before, so the previous 11 months. And if we then go down to rows, which is where we then add on anything to the chart, because it's not a template, we don't have everything added on there already, but we do have income. So income's already always there on a kind of build your own card because it needs to load with something. In this case, it's good, we're doing income. If you're doing something else, you just add expenses, then delete income. But in this case, we're doing income, which is cool. But what we're going to do, because we did that grouping, at the moment it's showing income as that top line figure there, so that's that 213,168 and so on. We want to maybe change how that's displaying on the chart. So where it says display on chart, we can then change it from this category. You've got the option to show all accounts if you want to, but because we've done that nice housework, we're going to use first level group and accounts. So that effectively means anything in a group level, and then any account that's left over. We didn't leave any accounts left over, we've just done groups, so we've got those two wedding and non-wedding set up there. So that's it done there. But what we can do now is maybe change the kind of format of the chart. By clicking on the chart symbol here, we can then change it to a different chart type, depending on your preference or what the client likes or how the data kind of works with that chart type. This, I quite like a spline, just a smooth line graph. Same sort of thing as a line, just smoother. But yeah, by all means, have a play with them and get the right chart for the curve analysis and the data you're using. Cool. So that's now looking a bit better. We've got a bit of visuals on there. Let's bring it to life. We can now see the trends, certainly a lot more interesting and powerful for a small business owner than just having a wall of numbers. Then on the right-hand side, we're going to use another chart. We're going to call this time cost analysis. Cool. I'm going to use a proportion card this time, which effectively is a pie chart. And because it's a pie chart, it doesn't have an axis on it. So I'm going to put in here actually last 12 months, just so everyone's aware what is showing on the chart there. We go into date range. I'm going to put in that date range, so previous 11 months. So the same date range, June plus the previous 11 being 12 months. And then down to rows, we can now add on what we want to. So income's there again, but we're going to delete that in a sec. So I'm going to click on See All here. That's then going to bring up our chart of accounts, where we can then add on anything that we need to. When you're in this screen, we can open up the category by clicking on the left-hand side, or on the right-hand side, we can select the whole category like that. So we want to add all of our costs, cost of sales, expenses, and other expenses. I'll then click Save. Cool, that's added them. We're going to delete income, as I said. We've got these here. So again, because we've done some grouping, we're going to elevate this chart even more by changing the display to the group level, just like we did with the income one. And then finally, I'm going to change the chart type to a donut. Cool. Simply personal preference on a donut versus a pie. They are just exactly the same, just ones with the middles missing. The donut doesn't come with any sugar on, unfortunately, but I prefer to go with the donut. And yeah, by all means, again, have a play. Cool, so now that's our first page. Looking pretty good, I think. Income, costs, split by group level with a traditional P&L at the bottom, just to kind of back up the visual display that we've got there. So you can click Save, or you can click Escape on your keyboard. And then we want to just hit Save, just so we kind of track progress. So the printer reports work slightly differently to the boards. The boards are kind of live, and when you add something, it kind of automatically saves. The printer reports, it's always best to really hit Save as you're going along. Then for this next page, we're then going to click Plus again. I'm going to leave the layout as it is, but I'm going to rename this to Balance Sheet. Down the bottom, I'm going to use the template. Once again, instead of searching for profit and loss, I'm going to search for balance sheet. And again, I'm going to change it to the table. Cool. And then once again, just going to turn off those formulas. So I've got more of a traditional balance sheet as it loads through. And then finally, just going to change the date range. Use the default date. So if you use a different date, like the custom date or last calendar month or something like that, that means that when you update that date that we just looked at, excuse me, that this table wouldn't update. So where we can, it's always good to use the default date, because that means when you then pull it through to the next month or next period, the majority of the report will update upon you doing that. And then lastly, we just want to expand that out just so it fits in the page. Cool. And then take out the title of the balance sheet. Cool. That's our balance sheet there. So again, at the top, we're going to put some visuals. This time, I'm going to put 3 different ones here. So at the top left, we are going to use a chart. We're going to use a comparison chart this time, so we can compare two different things. And we can rename this at the top here. So I'm going to use this as a bank balance. And then the subtitle, I'm going to put last 2 years. Because as the subtitle suggests, what we're going to do is the last 2 years compared with the bank balance. So we come down to the date range. And here, if we go to the comparison options, you'll see that it says year versus year comparison. So that means anything we put in the date range will compare with the previous year. So at the moment it's doing those 2 months compared with the previous year's 2 months. But if we now do previous 11 months, that'll be those 2 years compared there. You can also use this to compare actual versus budget, or budget versus forecast, or just effectively 2 variables. We're going to leave it as year versus year there. Then if we get down to rows, we can now add on something else. So again, income's there, we don't want income. This time I'm going to search for it by typing in the name there. We can add on the category bank accounts and delete income. Cool, it will load, it always does that. There we go. Cool, so that's now bank accounts, but again, I'm going to change the chart to a column here. Perfect, looking a lot better there. So now that's the bank balance compared with the last 2 years. So nice way to see how that client has been performing. It looks like in this example, they got more money in the bank recently than they did the previous year, so that's quite good. But you can pull out all sorts of analysis from the extra visuals that we're adding, really. So that's one. We've now got another one to add here. And this time, what we're going to do is effectively look at cash versus debtors. So if we go into a new chart, we're going to call this cash versus debtors. This is a really nice one to have the relationship between the money in the bank and the money outstanding as debt. I'm going to select the same date range, so we've got the last 12 months there. Then down to rows, I can again search for it by typing in, or I can click on see all. I'm going to select bank accounts, then open up our current assets and locate the debtors account. So in this case, it's called accounts receivable. Then click select. That's added them there. I'm going to delete income. But a nice one with this is to have them stacked on each other. So rather than having as 2 separate lines as we got there, if we select the chart type again, and then go down to the stacked area, we then got that there. So what this chart is showing, if I just hit done there, is if we're looking at the last month of June, they are tracking at about 0.3 million or so in the bank. But if they actually reclaimed all of their debt, they'd be up at 1.5 million or so. So it's a really nice way to show how much debt is outstanding versus the money in the bank. Is there therefore a talking point around the credit terms? Do we need to get credit control involved? If bank money does really dip and we've got maybe into the overdraft, if we're owed all this money, maybe that would help to get that money actually physically to us rather than owed. So that's quite a nice chart. Something that I know works quite well from the conversations I've had with kind of my portfolio of clients and so forth. Cool, then the last one, we're then going to use a template. We're going to use debtor days, so monthly debtor days. Cool, that's already loaded in, which is all good. Because I just capitalized everything, I'm going to be really pernickety and just do that. Otherwise that would drive me insane. And then go down to date range. I'm going to click on use default date again, just so it's all on the same date range. If you do use a pre-built formula, which this is, a monthly debtor, and it doesn't load, it will tell you what is missing, because sometimes if we click on the pen to edit the formula, you might not have an account that's called accounts receivable. It could be called trade debtors or debtors control account or something. You just simply need to scroll across, delete it, and add the correct one in, and then click confirm. Okay, so each chart of accounts is obviously set up maybe slightly differently. So if you're using a formula that you've already pre-created or it's already in Futurely, just depending on how the chart of accounts are named, you might have to adjust the formula so it kind of reads it correctly. Cool, so that page is pretty much all good. One thing we're now going to finally add to this is then a couple of pre-built pages. So we go into here, we've then got a variety of other templates, which you can certainly add in as we need to go. But we're just going to add in the basic ones of the cover sheet. So it's just one big text box, which you can edit and you can change anything you need to. You can take out the logo, you can put your own logo in. If you do white label your service, or if you've already got it white labeled, your logo will be there automatically, and the whole report will be on your brand. It'll be all in your colors, if you want to take that up as well. But you can do some minor editing in this field anyway. And if we use another one, we can use the executive summary. This is just two text boxes, which you can edit and then put in your key findings for the client. So when they first open up the report, they can kind of see what you've recommended and what you've identified for them is the kind of main points for them to look out for. And we can then move them to the front and then hit save. It should save any minute, there we go. And then when you then finished it, the final thing, just click print. That'll then just save it as a PDF, which will then pop up with a link for you to kind of download as a PDF and email it out or print it out or do whatever you need to with it as that there. So if we then select that, we can then have a look at the finished article. So we've got the basic management accounts. We've got the executive summary. We've got a P&L with some analysis on costs and income. And we've got the balance sheet with some KPIs there at the top. Cool. So that's one example of like a really nice way to elevate maybe the reports that are coming out of Xero or QuickBooks, where we can add on those extra bits of charts and just make it a bit more refined for that client. And what we can now do is a different type of report that's maybe a bit more advanced. So what we could do is just click duplicate. That's going to create a direct copy, obviously, of that report. So, like, actually at this stage, it's quite good to actually show you how we can then use that copy, maybe for a different client, by clicking on Real Story Productions. Say, for example, we want to use it for a different client. We can click on Accounting Example, click Confirm. The whole report is now refreshed and looking at the new client. So, again, talking about using templates, really good way. I'm doing another how-to webinar actually on templates, so come along to that, we'll go into that in a bit more detail. And you can also use this to then flip to the next month when you're finished with it by using the default date. I'm going to put it back to the Real Story Productions, and we're going to continue with this. So we're now going to firstly rename this to Advanced Management Accounts, and then click Save. Cool. So we're going to keep that main kind of P&L and balance sheet page as it is. But what we're going to do is add on a KPI page here. So I know I was speaking to fellow accountants. I was speaking with Ankit recently and asking for kind of inspiration or what's a good KPI. I think KPIs are quite precise and tailored for an individual client. And certainly through dialogue with them, you'll be able to understand exactly what kind of makes them tick and what they're really concerned about. And then constant reflection with that client will ensure that those KPIs are always relevant. Because a KPI that they look at now might be out of date in a few months' time. But I think we can always build out anything really that the client wants. So this would be a bit of an example of what a KPI page could look like maybe. So I'm going to rename this KPIs. And I'm going to look for 4 equal segments for the report. There we go. So at the top left, I'm going to use a template here because we've got a load of pre-built KPIs and you can also build your own. And here I'm going to put in wages to sales. It's a good one to measure staff performance. And you see here, as I was mentioning before, we've got a pre-built formula where the chart of accounts doesn't have direct wages. So if we go down to rows, click on edit on the wages of sales, we're going to delete those wages accounts and then locate the correct one. So we've got a group there called salaries. Click confirm. And now it will load. Good. We're going to again just make sure the date range is set up as the default date and previous 11 months. That looks all good, other than capitalizing, just so it's all the way through. Maybe 2 shouldn't be, that is better. Cool, that's one. So now we can add another one to the right-hand side. Let's use another template. And by all means, just have a scroll through, see what is relevant for the client, what you think can really pull out some key bits of analysis. In this case, I'm going to use gross profit percentage. Cool. Yeah, capital. I'm going to use a default date once more. And obviously the beauty of using the template is that it's all there, ready to go. Really quick way to build out a sort of a nice page for your client using the pre-built ones there. No point reinventing the wheel if it's already there. Cool. And then down here, what I'm going to do is actually add on a new chart. So something that we can build up our own. And I'm going to add in here a cash flow. Down to date range once more. And then in the rows, I'm now going to put in on here the closing bank and the net cash flow. So the income once more. So we just got what we wanted on there. Cool. And then here what we're going to do is actually have two different chart types working alongside each other, which can be really cool when we are presenting kind of not contrasting, but data that works well together. So we're going to change it to a column entirely. And then we're then going to change the net cash flow to a spline, like that. So then we've got the closing bank, and we've got the net cash flow kind of flowing over the top there. Cool. And then lastly, we're going to put in here another new chart. I'm going to put on here just simply expenses, because maybe this client is really concerned about the money they're spending on their kind of daily expenses. So this proportion card can go into further detail. So we've got the general cost analysis on the previous page. This is a closer look just at expenses. Again, we could put in here the last 12 months with no axis, just to further cement what we're showing in there. The previous 11. Down to rows, I'm just going to type expenses. Delete income, we got it there. But that's not much use to much people. So here we could in fact do all accounts. So we could see every single account there. And again, probably just split it to the donut. So that's our KPI page done. And then maybe in this advanced management accounts, you want to include a forecast as well. So if I just hit save, so that report's all good to go. What I'm going to do is then jump out of the reports. I'm going to go into the forecasting section and then build out a forecast. Completely new. In this forecasting section, we can then build a forecast out. I'm going to use the advanced create. I'm going to give this a name as forecast, maybe just a 1 year. Then in here, maybe the clients could have spoken to me and said that they're experiencing a 20% reduction in income. They've got a 45-day credit term on their income. Just purely something to do in this setup is there. We can then make more precise changes in this page here when it loads up. I won't go into the kind of detail of building out a forecast at this moment, so I've done some of the sessions on it, and obviously got more help material, so do get in touch with the support team if you've got more queries on anything that we're going through really. But simply you just go through, add in the kind of elements that the client's spoken to you. It doesn't have to be a in-depth piece of work. It can just be from your last conversation, the client said that's 20% reduction in income. They're looking to move office at the end of the year and they've just hired a new member of staff. You could work that in, and then you could then include that as a nice surprise or as a chargeable piece maybe, if that's how the previous discussions have gone in that set of management accounts. It doesn't always have to be a standalone. It can just supplement the work that you're already doing. So we're going to say that we've worked on that for however long. Doesn't have to be ages. It's going to just be a little introduction to what their future might look like. We're then going to go into the printer reports. Go back into the advanced management accounts. And then we're then going to change the scenario to the forecast there. Click confirm. So now we're going to use and set the default up to be that new forecast. You can have multiple forecasts set up. It just now whenever I use forecast data as my data source, it will by default select that forecast I just used. Then for this last one, I'm going to put in a forecast cash flow. So we've got the kind of historic 12 months or so in that KPI dashboard. This is going to be a closer look to how the next 12 months is going to go. I'm going to change the page layout to 2 equal segments. So down the bottom, I'm going to add in a new table. I'm going to take out the table title because we've got it at the top, down the date range, and here we're going to put it to following 11 months. So we've got, and in fact, actually, I'm going to change the date range. Rather than be June, we want to be July. So we're looking just at forecasted period. And then down into data source, we're going to put it to forecast only data, you see there. So now we're just using the default forecast then. The forecast we just built out. And then in rows, again, we've got income here, but we don't want income this time. We're going to add in our receipts. Receipts, payments, our opening bank, our closing bank, and our net cash flow. And then delete income once more. Cool. And there is our table for the forecast cash flow. As with the other tables that we've done in the reports, we're going to expand these categories out just so it fits in nice and smooth. And click done. Cool. That's our table. So as much as that's good, looks a bit dull. So we're going to present that now, effectively the same data, but as a chart. So if we copy it, we can then paste it above. And then I'm going to change this to a chart. So that doesn't really tell us much. It's a bit crazy. So I'm going to go down to rows. I'm going to turn off the receipts and payments. I'm going to turn off the opening bank as well, actually, and just keep the closing bank like we did on the previous one, where we were looking at past data. And I'm going to, again, change it to columns, but then put the net cash flow as a spline. Just to help with the update, as it sometimes likes to take a bit of time, I'm just going to manually refresh it by changing the date range like that. Cool. And there's our forecast cash flow for the next 12 months. It's a really nice way to present it, nice and clear for the client, and I think a nice way to round off a more in-depth or advanced set of management accounts to start to pull out the analysis from what the client might have told you before about how their future might look. And that could be a really good conversation starter that can then mold and shape the accounts moving forward. And hit save. Cool. And just quickly, before we get to the Q&A section, what I'm going to do is just quickly show you how you can use a Prebook template that we might have in a board to then present management accounts as a different method, I suppose. This is the more traditional printed report, really good for loads and loads of clients. What we can do instead is use the boards, a nice live presentation, where you can go to presentation mode, for example, and talk to the client, or a client can log in and see the report. We're going to go to the implementation folder and use, it might be called templates or something in your folder. We're going to use the basic P&L and balance sheet one. So effectively is the one that we did as the basic management accounts. We've got instructions on a how-to video here. But we're going to effectively duplicate the report. Because we want to keep the original as the master. Remove the instructions and the how-to video because they're here for us to learn how to use the board, but I'm talking you through it now. We're going to rename this as basic management accounts. We'll then flip round. I'm just going to hit refresh as well, just because I've done some quick updates. And then what we can do is effectively change the example data that's preloaded on the board to the client we're working on. And there we go. We've then got a set of management accounts produced really quickly on a live interactive board. This report is the only difference really being is that it's a P&L and a balance sheet comparison to the prior year. Another way to present management accounts where we can start to see how April 20 is compared with April 19. And we can obviously open up categories and then do things that we can't necessarily do in a printed report. We can toggle through really start to speak to the client, bring it to life, and also the client can log in and see this report as well, if you want to give them access. That's effectively how you have the two options. You can print directly from here, but if you want all the formatting and it to look as we were before the printer reports is the best place to use it for printing out. Yeah, you have the option to do it in the boards too. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. So I saw some questions come through. So now is a chance to whack in the Q&A function. I will try and get to them all. Before we get to Q&A, I can see that some people have, Elliot prefers donuts, always better than pies in the afternoon. I agree. Pies are good at a football match, but donuts are good for now. Cool, so Q&A's coming through. Okay, so one person has said, what if we wanted to carve out the balance sheet, e.g. if you wanted to see the individual balances that make up current assets, presumably you would push onto another page. So yes, with that one, we would expand out the categories. So you change the order, for example, well, change the layout of the page. So it expands out on one big field rather than having like charts at the top and the bottom. If it then didn't fit on the one page, what you would do is delete current assets, for example, from that page, or minimize it, and then put current assets on its own separate page. So the same with the P&L, for example. A common one is if you expand out the profit and loss, and expenses doesn't fit because expenses are normally 50 plus accounts or whatever. You can expand out everything, but keep expenses minimized on that one page, and then do an expenses breakdown on another page, maybe with a chart on that page as well. So yeah, by splitting them on different pages, we can then achieve a full expanded out version. Cool, so another question here. Is there a way to get total receipts and total payments for actual data like it does appear for forecast data? Unfortunately not. So Future doesn't pull through that data. We can forecast out receipts and payments, but we just pull through the end balance there. Another question, is it best to use Future on Safari or Chrome? Definitely Chrome. Chrome is by far the most optimal browser for most apps, really, I find, not just Future, just for most apps out there. Sometimes if you're using Safari or if you're using Internet Explorer and things, some buttons might not appear and things. So yeah, generally Chrome, I'm not a Chrome salesman, but we definitely find that for optimal experience, Chrome is the one there. Cool, another question in regard to the colors of the graphs and lines and shading and stuff. So yep, we can change all the colors, all the logos and everything, and that's all part of the white labeling service. The white labeling service is an additional service, but certainly get in touch with your account manager and we'll be able to help you out with that. So we kind of call it a full white labeling service. So we'll literally replace Futurely with your brand, and Futurely will therefore just be an extension of your own brand. Cool. Another question here, how do we do actual to date selected and add forecast for the rest of the year to get a revised yearly position? I think we've worked this through before. I think with that one, it's a monthly breakdown. To be able to do that, you effectively show each month actuals and then the forecast at the end of it, with the total at the end there, if you want a combined period. Cool. Just clicking down on those ones. Cool. We've got quite a few other questions to get through, which is good. One question, Edge rather than Chrome. I'm not really sure what Edge is, but I know that definitely Chrome is the best one. By all means, give Edge a go. Is that Internet Explorer, Edge? But yeah, Chrome we definitely prefer as the one. That's what all the development team use, is what we use on the account management side. So use Chrome. Same person, if you use tracking categories, can we have the monthly P&L with each tracking category as a column, which adds up to the total? I'm just going to reread that. If we use tracking categories, can we have the monthly P&L with each tracking category as a column which adds up to the total? So yeah, effectively you can. So you can use a tracking card, add on the individual accounts. So you would have income as your first one, and then it'll be all tracked individually with a total on the right hand side. So yeah, you should just be able to build that up manually by having the tracking card and then add on the P&L items you need to. Or you can have a P&L as normal, the template, and then apply the tracking to it. So say for example, you want to track, I don't know, a salesperson's P&L, you just simply add the profit and loss template, apply the tracking, and then the whole of the P&L will just be looking at that tracking code. Cool. Obviously, if I don't answer any of these questions quite clearly enough or you don't quite understand it, do come back, but hopefully I'm getting there with them. Another question here, how do you get access to board templates? Missed that bit. Cool, so with that, you would have some preloaded templates in your account. If you are missing any or any that you saw today, for example, like the profit and loss balance sheet one or any other templates in there, if you just let your account manager know, or support team via the little chat window or support@futurely.com, we'll be able to put anything into your account. Because there's some that are preloaded, like I said, for most people, or for everyone. Others, the account manager would generally put them in as and when it's relevant, when it's relevant really. So just get in touch. Cool. Are there any developments on linking with multi-currency conversions? So that consolidation, I presume. So effectively, we are aware of that, but generally, although it does come up from time to time, the demand is relatively low compared to other things that are in the pipeline. So it's something that we're aware of, but I couldn't give any kind of further concrete timeline on that, unfortunately. Cool. Someone's go back about Chrome again. Edge is faster, fair enough. Yeah, use either one, but give it a go. Another one says, can we resize the table width? Yep, yeah, you might have missed that point. But yeah, by all means, just by adding on a table, you can then, in the PDF builder, scroll down the right-hand side, the table cell width, and you can then expand and shrink it to however you need to. When you add it on a board, you have 3 sizes, and it will kind of fit depending on the computer size you're looking at. But yeah, you can amend it however you need to there. Can we quickly show P&L by tracking? This is a common query from clients. Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll come to that. I've got one more question there. So we've got, can we send auto email of printer reports? No, effectively. You just simply download it and then email it out. If you want a client to always access the report, the dashboards is probably the best way to do it. Okay, let me just quickly show then a P&L by tracking. And that should then wrap up the session. Let me share my screen again. I hope this works. You put me on the spot here now. Cool. We're going to add card. We're going to scroll down to tracking. We're going to open it up here. We're then going to call this profit and loss. We've got the tracking codes automatically selected there for this account as the example. If you have others, you just search for them and add them on. It always gives you 4. You can add others and then do whatever we need to there. I'm going to put the date range as the last 11 months. Go to the report tab, and here we can then add on our items of the P&L. Turn off the chart. Obviously, you have other things in there as well, formulas and things, just for the quickness. You can just going to add on the basics there, I suppose. On the columns, I'm going to turn off the totals and go to there. Okay. There we go. So, okay, the tracking example data that I have is not the best because we've got nothing in expenses or anything else, but you can see the idea anyway that income is showing there. So that is how you do a profit and loss by tracking code. Did that answer the question? Let's see. I think it did. Cool, perfect. And someone else has asked, is tracking the same as classes in QuickBooks? Yes, tracking is Xero's version of classes. That's the only difference between the 2 integrations with Futurely, is that Xero's integration allows for tracking to be ported through in the API, Unfortunately, with QuickBooks, more often not, classes isn't ported through due to some issue with their API, which we are working with them to correct. But yeah, classes doesn't come through on QuickBooks majority of the time. Let us know if you've got any queries on that. The support team are happy to try different things, but yeah, tracking works with Xero. Classes generally doesn't work with QuickBooks. Cool. I think that are all of the questions. I will be in touch then with the recording when it becomes live to me in the next probably tomorrow morning, as well as a help guide that we've got, and all the material that you might need. By all means, give me a shout if you've got any queries from the session. Support team as well, support@features.com, or the in-app chat messenger, or your account manager as well if it's not myself. I saw some familiar names, but others as well. So yeah, I hope you found it useful. And yeah, I will be in touch. Have a good rest of your day. And it's almost the weekend, so it's all good. Cheers then. Thanks a lot.